Hello, welcome to Join Caucus. My name is Evan Spencer. He died this morning around 9:45, we are told. His burial will be tomorrow. He'll be buried at Asumdwe Park. It was just announced. I'm talking about the late former Vice President, Alhaji Aliyu Mahama. Today on Join Caucus, we dedicate the show to discussing his life and celebrating him, really, what he stood for, what we can pick from his life. One of the presidential candidates described him as a man who stood for peace, indeed understood what it took to become a political leader, and indeed led this country as a vice president for 8 years. We'll be looking at his life, his legacy, here on Joint Caucus. With me to start the discussion is Samuel George, who is a member of the NDC and Government Communications team. Thank you very much, Samuel George, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Here on Joint Caucus. We will have Kwabena Sapon on the line. He is the member of the NPP communications team. He's actually on the line with us today. I want to start with him, Mr. Sapon. Thank you for joining us here on Joint Caucus on the line. How do you know the late former vice president? I'm sure you've worked with him as a key personality in the NPP. How would you remember him?
Well, I have not actually worked with him, but since I was actively involved in NPP administration in 2001 to 2008, I got to know him a lot. I think Alhaji Aliyu Mahama brought some sort of what I would call dignity and integrity to the position of the vice president. And he's left a mark for it. If you observe, you see that he's the only vice president that nobody have had to say anything bad about. Nothing. He has had no problem, no confrontation with anybody. He executed his work perfectly. He went along very well with everybody, with his boss. He served Kufuor very, very, very diligently, and served Mother Ghana also. So he left a mark for all of us to learn. Somebody that was easily approachable, he will listen to you, and I never saw him angry. That is one thing that I must probably give it to. I'm not saying that he is infallible. No, he's a human being like all of us. We make mistakes, and we cause different problems for other people. But you see that for the 8 years that he was there was not a single time that anybody had to say something bad or even infer or impugn anything bad about this vice president. And we have lost a great person. We lost a good character, okay? For those of us who want to go into public life, it is worth emulating his life because he served the nation and served the nation well. But what I would like to borrow a word from J.J. Rollins, he's a man of integrity. And we must be proud of that. We've lost, once again, we've lost a very, very, very important personality in our life.
What do you think his legacy is?
His legacy is that he is probably up to today the only vice president that nobody has had any problem with, either on the job or outside the job. That is why I have to say that. You know, I don't want to mention names, but when you mention the name, you are going to, you mention this man, you mention this man, you mention that one. I don't want to say that. But I just want to make a statement that he left a legacy. Since 1992, he is the only vice president we've had that nothing has been said about him. And that is the legacy that he lives with. Anytime anybody talks about the vice president, at least Ali's name will come up. His personal and private life, I wouldn't know. You see, I went to school with Ali. Okay, he was 1 year behind me.
Where was this?
All of us went to Tech. Ali was my schoolmate at Tech. Okay, but I didn't know him well at that time because he was in the engineering department and I was in the faculty of science. Okay. But I know that from Tech, everybody liked him. He's been a very good and successful contractor. He was a quantity surveyor and he became a contractor. Before he became a vice president, he was a very good and a successful contractor up north. That's where most of his works were done, not down here. So he left a mark for himself in the north. Until the end, the people of Yanji may probably love to have him buried over there since his mother is alive. But I don't know. This is not something that I can say. I don't want to get involved in that. This is a matter for him and the family and the government to decide. Whatever they want to do, we're going to support them to give him a fitting burial.
I don't know where you were in 2000 when he was chosen to partner President John Agyekum Kufuor as vice president, but I was listening to former President Kufuor today, and one of the key things he said was that even in 2000, nobody thought the late president, may he so rest in perfect peace, could become a vice president. And when he was told that I want you to partner me by the former president himself, he was shocked, because he didn't anticipate that he will be named or considered as part of the list of people who were actually lobbying. He didn't lobby then to become a vice president. That is the kind of person he was. He was not that, he wasn't your typical politician, was he?
No, I think he was a politician, but he was not a political animal. I am a political animal. I'm an active politician. He was not. Aliu was not an active politician. He was not. If he was active, he was not known within the MPP circle when he was selected. So his selection came as a surprise to a lot of us. A lot of us. But I would say that about 90% of the population of ND, active MPP members at that time, were surprised when Ali was chosen. But Kufuor had seen the qualities in him. Okay, that was why he selected him. I overheard him speak about why he selected him, and I think he gave him very good compliments for selecting him. And we as a matter of fact, we commended him for that, because he came to do a beautiful job for us. He really made the vice president an active member of the government and gave it a good name, knowing where we were coming from. His vice presidency was very, very well executed. And I don't think Kufuor once turned back and say, hey, did I make a good choice? Yes, he did. He did for the administration of the nation. He made a good choice in selecting Aliu Mahama to be his vice president.
Mrs. Zapon, thank you very much. Let me return to the studio here. And, I'm joined by Samuel George, a member of the government communications team. You worked with him as well.
Yes, I must say a very good evening to viewers, and it's been a pretty sad day for me, because I believe, like every other Ghanaian, we have lost the longest serving vice president in the history of this republic. And I would say it was an honor to work with him. I had the honor to work with him for 10 months when I did my compulsory national service in his office.
Was he the vice president then?
Yeah, he was the vice president. I did my service from September of 2007 to August of 2000. We had to go on leave end 31st July 2008. And so I joined in the I did my service in the dying embers of his reign as vice president, and most of the time was spent during his failed presidential aspirant mission. But getting to know him up close. But prior to that, I had known him from afar as vice president, and his son, his first son, had been a junior at Tech, and so I'd got to know the wife through the first son, Hajara Matu, and I think they're a wonderful family. Alhaji Mahama, as we've all come to know, is someone who I'll describe, or he was a disciplinarian. He was somebody who abhorred indiscipline. And I believe Ghanaians remember his fight against indiscipline. And I think that's his greatest legacy. Okay, people can say all the things they want to say about him, but in all fairness to the man, I think his greatest legacy and what he will be remembered for most is his fight against indiscipline. Working in his office, I heard stories about him. I heard stories of how when he was back in Tamale, He could be driving around town, and when he sees a friend who's out of town, and maybe he sees the son driving his, as young boys, we all did that. When your father leaves the house or travels, you go and sneak into his room, take the car keys, and drive around town to chill a little. When he sees these boys, he can pull over, take the car keys from you, and ask you to go home, and go and park the vehicle in his house, and wait for your father to come. Because that is the level of discipline he tried to inspire the youth of this nation to appreciate. And I think that's his greatest legacy. Every man will be remembered by his works, okay? And I think that as vice president, his contribution to this nation, as vice president, he launched a presidential initiative. We saw the adverts on TV against the indiscriminate dumping of refuse, against the indiscipline in our system, disrespect for traffic rules and all of that. And I think that is what anybody who really knew him and what Ghanaians remember him for, Mr. Indiscipline. He was a principled man. He loved Allah. He loved his God. He was religious. And my heart really does go out to Haja Ramatu. She's always been a mother, and she would always be a mother. I think that family is a blessed family, And so knowing Alhaji from where I stood and working closely with him for 10 months, it is a sad loss to this nation. And I think that this resonates across government. Okay, government has issued a statement expressing our condolence to the family, and it must be noted that His Excellency the President, who is the leader of the NDC, has a very, very unique relationship with the departed former vice president.
Is a character who appealed to people across the political divide. I mean, look at yourself. I mean, you're an NDC stalwart, if I may call you so, but yet you worked for him. Maybe then you were not your political.
I was in a political animal.
Exactly then, yeah. But definitely the president had said he had a personal relationship with him. We've heard comments from other political leaders. He comes across as an individual liked by a lot of people, regardless of their political background.
I think he was a fine gentleman. Alhaji Ali Muhammad was not your cast in the wood or cast in the stone politician, kind of. Okay, he was more of a businessman. He's a man who built a conglomerate for himself, built a financial empire in this country. And if you remember very well, when former President Kufuor picked him, I think early 1999, as his running mate.
It was pretty controversial.
It was controversial. There were people who said Alhaji Ali Muhammad was an NDC person because he had done a lot of work with the Rawlings NDC administration.
He was not a thoroughbred.
He was not a thoroughbred politician. He wasn't a dyed-in-the-wool NPP and all of that. And it was something which actually followed him during his 8 years in power. There were certain instances where you felt that if he was more of a political animal, things might have turned out differently, But for me, those are irrelevant at this point in time. The most important thing is I think Alhaji Ali Mahama and President John Dramani Mahama share that unique friendship because they have very similar traits. Irrespective of the fact that John Dramani Mahama is a classic political animal. He's being a member of parliament, he's a politician, a thoroughbred politician. But in terms of their approach and outlook on life, they share very similar sentiments. I've worked with both men, and so I can make a very good comparison on them. I'm well pleased to say that they're both fine gentlemen who are loved across the two divides. Do not forget, today a lot of people are trying to vilify John Dramani Mahama because of political expediency. But in 2006 or 2007, when he was picked as the running mate for our late president, John Evans Mills, many people said he was the right man in the wrong party. That's the similarity both men have. They felt that irrespective of your political affiliations, we must be able to tolerate dissenting opinions. And for me, I think that is one thing which has kept strong. We saw His Excellency pay visits to the late president, the late former vice president, when he was admitted. During the last Muslim celebration, I think that was the Salah, the Salah celebrations at the Independence Square, His Excellency called for a prayer for him. That was when he had just taken ill. And that shows you the bond that existed between them. And, funny enough, I got calls, in the past 2 days when the hoax came out that he had died 2 days ago. A lot of people in the hinterland, the villages, especially my constituency, who might not really be too clear on the issues, kept calling and saying, they said the president is dead, they said the president is dead. And we had to clarify that, no, it's not John Mahama, it's Aliu Mahama. And at that time, he was still very much alive. Okay, but I think that all in all, he's lived a life, his 66 years have been a huge success by any standards, by any measures, okay? This is a man who, in sports, set out to achieve a lot. And I think under his chairmanship and as member of the board of RTU enjoyed one of his finest spells. That's Real Tamale United. When you come to the world of business, Lidra Construction made a name, was a household name in civil construction in this country. When you come to politics, the man occupied the number 2 position in this land for the longest ever period. And so I think that all in all, when it comes to religion, he was a devout Muslim. Okay, and so as far as I'm concerned, he's lived a life worth celebrating. It's true, it's a loss, but in all things, I think we should give thanks to God. And I think that we can celebrate the departure of a noble man, a man who has served this nation well. And it is very instructive that just like when our late president left and everybody was full of praise for him, when the milk of human compassion flowed through everybody at his demise, you could hardly hear a single negative word against the late president. So it is with Alhaji Aliu Mahama. He lived our life and it was a life well spent.
I want to bring back Mr. Sapon, who is back on the line with us. The questions now about what this will mean for the NPP, because this is a stalwart. This is somebody who played a central role in the party. He was your vice president for 8 years. We also know how much he contributed to running the party financially, etc. What do you think the implications will be for the party with the sort of contributions he's made to the growth of the party over the years?
Well, when you talk of contribution, when you lose a human life, a human being, nothing can compare to that. No amount of money can buy a human life. So we're not even going to look at the sort of contribution, both materially and physically, that he gave to the party, but the fact that we've lost a life, and that is more important to us. That is going to be the biggest blow to us. We wish he will be alive to see us go back to the Jubilee House. Now we've lost him, and that is what hurts us most. His contribution is enormous. We can never replace him. As for contribution, when you lose, somebody else may be able to fill it. But we're not going to say we lost him and we are hurt because he was contributing so much to the party and we can't get that one now. No, that is secondary. It's not even on to be considered as far as I'm concerned. That is not important. The most important, I'm repeating it, the most important thing is we've lost a human being. We've lost a valuable life that cannot be replaced with any amount of money. And that is where our heart is. That is where our pain is. Okay? It pains us very, very much. If you come to his house, almost all the important personalities in NPP have been here today just to show our condolences to the family, to console with them and to grieve with them. We have lost somebody that is important in the party. Like I said, Ali was not a political animal before he became our vice president. But when he became the vice president, he was active in the party, and that is what makes it valuable to us. So we're going to lose him, the fact that he's a human being, not because we're not going to see him on the campaign trail. Yes, if he is alive, he will be on the campaign trail because he has really campaign trail. He has really helped in this campaign more than he's done in the previous 2 campaigns. That is, even in 2000, the 3 campaigns that he had, 2000, 2004, 2008, he spent more time in this campaign than he did in the 3 previous campaigns. The one who is going to feel it most important is our current running mate, because he's been on his side, taking him around and being almost every place with him. And that is what he just left here. The one in May just left this place. So like you rightly said, yes, MPP is going to lose him very, very much, and it's going to hurt us in the campaign. It's not that it's going to draw us back. It's going to give us more inspiration to fight and win the seat and win the presidency for him. At least that if Ali were here, we would have won. And if Ali is gone, we must win for him. So that is how we look at it.
In other words, the greatest way to remember him is to win the elections.
Is to win the election. Yes. Yes. We will have to win this election, and we're going to win it too.
Now, the president has declared 5 days of mourning. We know we're going to have a state burial for him sometime this weekend. It's still uncertain. I'm told now it's Sunday. Is there any special ceremony within the party itself, aside the national one, to remember him and to celebrate his life?
Well, as I stand here now, I will not be able to tell you. I just came from the house of the former president, and he was looking up to what the state and the family would decide, and then we will support them. As to whether the party is going to have a special function or not, I will not be able to say today, because that is a decision to be made by the party national executive. So I don't know what will be but the party is going to support any decision that the family and the state will take. If it's going to be a state funeral, then it will become a state function, and all of us must take part very actively. The state will take over, and I hope that the state will recognize the family rights and incorporate what the family desires in the state preparation for the funeral. I hope this one is done. You have to respect this. And since Ghana, we kind of like our culture. We've not thrown it away. We must allow the culture and the religious beliefs also play a very important role in whatever the state is going to do. And I appreciate it that the president has declared this.
5 days of national mourning.
5 days, and that's good. That means we remember our people who have fought for us. We don't have to be in office to enjoy something like that. He's not in office. This is the second time, this is the third time a past vice president has died. The first one was Akar. The second one was Digab Johnson. He's the third one. I think if you go back to memory lane, I don't think we had state burials for the two of them. I don't remember. Akar is the recent one. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If we had a state burial for him, I don't remember. But we didn't have a state burial for Digab Johnson, and if we didn't have a state burial for Akar, and we're going to have a state burial for Ali Muhammad, it's good. It means we are turning a new leaf. We are moving forward, and we are setting new standards for us. Our democracy is now growing. It is growing. It doesn't matter where you are. If you are a state employee, an important personality like that, and you pass away, the state will recognize you and give you appropriate and fitting burial. I'm happy about that.
Okay.
And I hope it should be a lesson for all of us. This means our democracy is growing. And maybe the next 20 years, we will hardly see a difference between MPP and NDC and CPP and what. Ghana will be the first in whatever we do.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir, for your time again. Just final words. Today, we had, it happens anytime we get a senior, indeed a statesman like that, passing. It happened when we lost our president. Family say we want to bury him in his home region. But obviously, this is an individual who transcends any family. He is a national character. Today we had a family say, oh, we want him in Tamale. The state says, well, listen, whatever you decide, we are ready to give you and accord him the full state burial. That's certainly something that going forward, we are learning from as a country, because we've had the case of the president, we've had this example as well. We are building an institution. In the US, I know it's ingrained, and it's a system. They know when a statesman dies what to do instantly. What do you think? What lessons are we drawing from from these deaths that we've had in the past, in this year alone?
Evans, I think that, like you said, we are budding democracy. We're a young nation. And as a young nation, our leaders are eventually going to start, especially now that we're practicing democracy, with time, we'll have their
presidential cemetery, etc., etc.
Exactly.
So we are moving closer.
Now we have Asomdwe Park. And like you rightly pointed out, you know that presidents will be buried, I think, in Arlington Cemetery in the US. We should, as a people, move to that position where we realize that, look, our presidents are national assets, vice presidents are national assets. And I think the point must be made that the family has been consulted. And a part of the family, which has been in touch with government, has agreed to the Sunday burial of the late former vice president and his interment at the Asomdwe Park. Okay, so clearly this is an issue that is a family matter. We want him in Yendi, we want him he can be buried in Asomdwe Park. Government is willing to go with whichever the families decide, but I believe that with the leadership of the family here and his wife and his children, government has met with them, there's been a stakeholder consultation. And I think that as a nation, we must come to that point where we all know that when we have departed heads of state or former heads of state, they should be buried at our national cemetery. Today, Arlington Cemetery is a tourist attraction.
Absolutely.
You get it. And we can develop Asomdwe Park into that too. And I think that Ghanaians, we should respect the 5 days of national mourning.
Yeah. Flags will be flying at half-mast.
Flags will fly at half-mast. And our national psyche must try to reflect the fact that we have lost a national gem.
Thank you very much, Samuel George, for your time here on Joint Caucus. It's been a somber show today. My name is Evans Mensah. Up next is Joy News at 8.